I can spotlight you too.
That's right. I made you co-host.
Look at that.
It'd be like a podcast. A
There we
visual
go.
one.
I get the headphones too.
Yeah, my Princess Leia headphones. My speaker in my iMac is kind of getting wonky. So let's see. I will keep an eye on letting everybody in, so you don't have to worry about that at all. And rather than introduce you and all of the amazing things that you're doing, because honestly, I can't keep up, I'm going to just hand it over to you so that you can just share with everybody what you're up to these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, a huge thank you to Krista for inviting me to be here with everyone here today. And I'd kind of kick off a little bit more 30,000 foot view of an intro as to who I am. Though as I'm looking at the display of everyone who's here at the moment, I know half of you. And the other half, I look forward to getting to know better here. I'm someone who has done kind of a little bit of everything in hypnosis. As in, I began when someone came to my college many years ago and did a stage hypnosis show, and I went, oh, that's cool, and made the mistake of thinking I was getting books on how to learn that, and instead all the books were on like hypnotherapy. So it was me reading all of the wrong books first, going, this isn't what I wanted. Interesting. And kept reading. So it's kind of why, as my career began with stage hypnosis, I'd now give it the subtitle of the stage hypnotist with the hypnotherapist heart. As in, it wasn't about funny show. It wasn't about comedy club kind of entertainment. It was more, what was this group facing as a challenge? And how could I speak to that challenge specifically through the filter of this interactive program? That's about the time, though, that I was like, I need to learn how to do this works better, opened up what then became Virginia Hypnosis, which was a local practice that ran for more than a dozen years, thousands of clients. And along this journey, at the point where it was running at its absolute peak, I shut down the doors, closed the business, and moved 1,000 miles away. I'm now in Orlando, Florida, and 100% of everything I do is online. I live in this home office with my purple polo shirt. Yes, I'm always wearing pajama shorts because that's what running a business online is truly about. I've done trainings over the years. I host the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast that I'm looking here and going, how the hell have I not yet had Sharon Jackman on the program? Invite coming your way by the end of the day, remind me. Chris has been on at least once or twice. And what kind of most people know me for is that, let me kind of share the behind the scenes of the, what would almost be considered the superpower here, is not necessarily just the business acumen and the way to look at how do we design the journey from stranger off the street to raving fan testimonial and create the systems that are necessary to take the guesswork out of clients consistently coming in. The behind the scenes story that I've only talked about in recent years would be that I grew up in a family where everybody was an entrepreneur. My parents were wedding photographers. My grandfather owned everything from like a furniture store at one point to then a jewelry store. And it's not just that I kind of grew up hearing people do a more consultative basis of sales. It was more that I never was raised with the belief system that most small businesses fail. It's hard to grow your business. It's going to be slow your first year. If you don't yet have testimonials, it's going to be difficult. If you haven't yet paid your dues, and I'll say this respectfully and as professionally as I can, a lot of the bullshit that holds a lot of people back in this industry in terms of business is stuff that was never the dialogue that I heard early on. There's an interview with the actor, comedian Jason Sudeikis, who was on Saturday Night Live, and then also the Horrible Bosses movies. This is clearly going the exact direction you all thought today. And it was an interview with him, and the interviewer was asking him, well, when you decided to go into acting, what was that like, having that conversation with your parents? And if you know the comedic actor I'm speaking of, you could hear his voice in the response, which was, oh, you didn't do your research. Oh yeah, my uncle is George Witt, Norm from Cheers. So he wasn't like a close family member, but I just kind of grew up in a family where this wasn't weird. Let me see your other questions so I can tell you the questions you should have asked. It was an amazing interview, and that's when it clicked for me. So it was instead the ability to look at something and go, what has to happen? Looking at the ability that one of the biggest mistakes we often make in any business would be guessing. We go into this amazing little incubative mindset and we strategize what we think is the right thing to say, what we think is the thing that everyone's going to respond to. And I'd kick this off with the personal story of this, of the time that I had it all figured out. I knew the exact offer that I wanted to make to my audience, to the point that I invested several $1,000s into getting this project built out, having someone build a gorgeous website, getting some videos edited, paying someone to like automate emails and all this fancy funnel stuff that even I don't understand. And then as it launched, up until like 3 or 4 days before, 0 people had signed up. As I was about to pull the trigger and just go, nope, never mind, let's just pretend that never happened, one person did sign up, then realized they had already signed up for something else. It was at a conference, and it turned into me going, 2 options. One, I can just cancel and refund, or we could do this training another time, or I have this other product, you just want it, we'll just call it even. She's like, oh, that's great, and moved on. There's the story of the time that I wasted a ton of money on something that absolutely bombed and failed. However, the lesson was learned. I then reached back out to that same audience and I asked, what is your biggest pain point? What is the specific problem you were looking to solve the most? And as I got feedback from them on exactly what they wanted, I didn't try to sell what I felt they needed. I spoke the language now instead of exactly what they wanted. End of the story is that became the first time ever I didn't just have a 6-figure year, I had a 6-figure month. Why? By listening to that audience, and the ultimate sales conversation begins in their language. And it's along this journey that you as the expert are the one shifting the criteria upon which they're making the decisions, activating the right belief shifts that have to occur, so that by the time they hear exactly how you work with them and what you do, they've already been mentally rehearsing saying yes and joining you for what you do. The side note to this would be that really today, what I'm going to be sharing is not just about growing your business, not just about running a professional practice, not just about getting paid. I kind of brand things now in this category of attract pre-sold clients, though the pre-sold mentality isn't just about finances. Because, and this was the bigger epiphany for me, as the client called up and scheduled, it was no longer what I'd call fingers crossed hypnosis. Well, hope this works. We'll see how it goes. It was instead, so happy you've got Thursday available. I am ready to be done with this thing finally. They were already in the story of the success path. These were the people that, get this, this is going to be revolutionary, I know for some of you. If I gave them a thing to do, like listen to this audio or practice this technique, because of this pre-sold relationship, they actually did the things I was suggesting to do. Which I'm already seeing some nods going, oh, wow, okay. So as much as I will playfully at times today kind of hit the running gag of the self pat on the back, I will also give you the clear disclaimer, though. I have made all the biggest screw ups. I have thrown the money at the things that didn't work. And I've also made some of the biggest mistakes. And that's why it's a big part of what I do now, not just seeing clients, but also consulting, coaching on the business side of things. And as years have gone by, this has expanded beyond just the hypnotic communities. And it's that revelation that back to self. If there's firm belief, there are no resistant clients. Clients become resistant because of a lack of rapport and a lack of clarity in your messaging. Yes, clearly they're resistant to change. If they weren't resistant to change, they wouldn't be reaching out to you in the first place. They would have resolved the issue on their own. Yet again, resistance is created because of a lack of clarity in the messaging and a lack of rapport in the process. And as much as I can playfully do this running gag sometimes, I'm going to be the first one, whenever possible, to completely throw myself under the bus and go, I did that the wrong way. How can I do that better to prevent this issue ever happening again? Even for simplest things inside of your session, if you're doing a classic Dave Elman induction, And I'm reaching over to say, as I pick up that arm and let it plop back down, if they're helping me, if I was to say, don't help me, yes, we know negative command, it's telling them, help me. Instead, talk about what you want rather than what you don't want. So the specificity of language and how, as much as it may be specific hypnotic language hacks to solve some of the common issues, it's really more so about the sequencing of how we guide someone through this journey. So there's a predictable outcome at the end. And again, your ideal clients are already nodding in agreement saying, yes, I want this, in a way that doesn't feel like sales. So I just planted a whole lot of seeds here in terms of the topics I typically talk on. I've transitioned the entire business online. This is the part I'm not too thrilled about, but at least it's breaking even. I got fed up with Northern Virginia rental prices in 2019, and I bought the office that I was running in Virginia. Perfect timing to then, a year later go, hey, we're moving. And at least the rental payment that the counselors in that space are paying is like breaks even. I think I'm losing $3 a month, but they're putting principal into the account, which I'm sure is losing money at the other side. Group sessions to online programs to trainings to I'd be transparent that these days, if I'm working with a client for stop smoking, it's $1,200. If I'm working with a client for other, it fits into a category I call the Hypnotic Transformation Program, which is officially the stuff that's not stop smoking, and that's a $5,000 program. I'm never pricing for the sake of ego and making myself feel better. Be aware that on the web, there's a new virus of people who have high ticket offers because they want to have high ticket offers. Let's not make today the story of how I signed up for a very expensive mastermind and got my money back within 5 days. Transparency, communication, that's the theme of today. And I'm going to get into some specifics here. However, here's the big bank of everything that I often talk about. And I wanted to start today because I didn't know who was going to be here. And oftentimes you're all coming in from different angles. So let's do this. In the chat off to the side, let me know specifically if there's a pressing problem you're looking to fix inside of your hypnosis practice. Some of you may be on the startup side. Some of you may be on the scale-up side. Let me know if perhaps you're stuck on, hey, here's this one thing I'm trying to do, but here's the issue I keep running into. Preview in advance, just like our classic hypnotic pre-talk, most conflicts are not discovered, they're created by accident. So a big thing that I tend to focus on is how do we craft that journey so we prevent this issue from ever happening again? In terms of what is it that has to be said? What's the right phrasing that has to be there? As you're brainstorming yourself and everyone is passionately diving into the chat to type absolutely nothing. Fantastic. You're all winning. It comes around to that story that we're bringing people through the arc of. So this is your opportunity. Let me know what your sticking points right now. What is it you're trying to do better inside of your hypnosis practices, your hypnosis businesses? And I'm going to take that list and pull from the stuff that I can speak on and go specific to your needs rather than, here's this thing I'm assuming you all need. So we got this. Is it pronounced Jagir? Got it. Cool. I'm just going to read some of these first because I'm going to put them in a little bit more specific sequence. Can you talk more about coming from the client's point of view with regards to their issue rather than what many new hypno folks do, which is focus on their experience and techniques? Yeah. Let me see if there's a few others that pop up here along the way. Side note, I'm a master now of writing the mute button, which I just did not do after I said I could. Where is it? There it is. Fighting a weird allergy thing that came back after several years. There's a resolution in place, but not till Friday. So I will be writing that mute button to prevent my coughing from going directly into Chris's earmuffs. Cool. Let's actually dive in here. And I'll tell you the angle. Here's another one. Advertising myself and getting my name known for what I do. Awesome. Here's the filter I'm going to put on everything here. And this is going to be a very bold statement, but it works in different angles. Technology is the weakness. And I mean that from two different angles. If technology is the thing that you're not good at yet, stuff like, oh, I want to put this new video on a website, or I filmed this video, how do I get it from this onto there? Technology is the easiest thing to blame. But guess what? If the technology is the thing that you happen to be exceptionally good at, it's an even bigger weakness. And let's not turn this entirely into Jason Linett throwing himself under the bus, but let's go there for the opening moment here. There's a guy who positioned himself as a branding expert, who it was a giant 5-figure investment to get this jasonlinett.com website built out. And there's a problem with it. You can't find the damn buttons. You don't know exactly what the next step is you're supposed to take. And it looks pretty. There's some nice colors on it and such, but it has successfully sold absolutely nothing. And I took that as something to go, good, it ratified my opinion that branding is not everything. The communication in the language of the consumer, which is what Krista hinted towards there a moment ago, which is where I'm going to start this off, is really what's important. If you cannot yet sell it to yourself, how could you ever sell it to somebody else? And so the very expensive learning lesson I had by going with someone who positioned as a branding expert turned into me going, you know what, let's run an experiment. Let's make it 100% about the messaging. And up until actually only about a month ago, we transitioned most of my websites to be a very simple formula. Headline, video, maybe 3 or 4 bullet points, and a button. And that was it. White background, nothing fancy to it. Headline, video, maybe a few bullet points, that part we easily removed, and a button that was the next step, often to book a call or sign up for something. Back to the messaging. The quote to hold on to is that the ultimate sales conversation begins in the language of the consumer in their problem state, and it ends in the language of the expert in the solution state. So let's actually play with this for a moment. Feel free either just to unmute, let's get interactive on this, or drop it into the chat. And I'm going to ask a question here, and either unmute yourself or do the, you don't have to do the hand raise, we've got a small enough group, or just put it over here in the chat. Here's my question to you. What is the problem that you solve for your clients? Feel free to just unmute and say it, or drop it in the chat off to the side. Specific question, listen to the exact words. What is the problem that you solve for your clients? Let's see what pops up with this. All at once, fantastic. Lack of clarity, nice. Chris, you've heard me do this before, so you won already. I help women get unstuck. Sharon, you're 70% there. What is the problem that you help them with? And you answered with what you do. So take a crack at rephrasing that. I help women get unstuck. Drop a variation of this. Even if you're in a startup phase, when you're in a training environment like this is the place to experiment. This is the place to like throw something out there. This is the place to get feedback. If you're in your head going, I don't have it perfectly right yet, I'm not going to post it, you're doing yourself a disservice. So even if it's a first time you've ever taken a crack at doing this, lack of confidence, issues in and out of the courtroom, nice. Thinking about, and Charlotte, you and I go back, you're not necessarily a startup. Thinking about addressing menopause issues, still looking for a swift way. Ooh, nice. I just like swift way. Cool. Here's the way to run this experiment. What are they laying in bed 2 a.m. and Googling to try to solve their problem? What is it they're saying to themselves in their minds? What is that conversation they're having when the loved one in bed next to them goes, having problem falling asleep? And it's that conversation around like midnight, 1 a.m. And if you can nail the communication of exactly what they're saying to themselves and start with that language there, I'm going to riff off of some of these in the examples over here. If you're tired of feeling stuck, I want a little bit more detail here, Sharon. I'm going to actually just unmute you because I got the keys to the Zoom here. When you say I help women get unstuck, can you give me a little bit more specificity on that one?
Yeah, usually in some area of usually it's in career.
Mhm.
They're stuck. They don't want to do something different. They want to start a new business. They want to do something different with their business, but they don't know what, they don't know how to get there. And they just identify as I'm stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck.
Yeah, I'm going to ask some very specific questions. If you're taking notes, write these down. What are they moving away from?
Lack of clarity.
Is lack of clarity, they're in bed 2 a.m. Damn, I just got to fix this lack of clarity.
No, that isn't it. They feel like their life isn't moving forward. They're just, the only word I continue to come up with is stuck. So
Mhm. What's the result of being stuck? Because there's an emotional component of the being stuck. What's the external outcome? These are career-oriented women. What's the external outcome of the fact that they're currently stuck?
yeah, so they stay in painful situations.
There we go.
Right.
So rather than I'm Sharon, I'm an expert at helping people get unstuck, think of a headline here, which is, if you're tired of feeling stuck, plateauing in the same level of your career, this is rough because I'm just freestyling it here. If you're tired of feeling stuck in the same career and standing in the way of your own future success, fill in the blank, the rest. And it
I love
has
it.
them already nodding their head in agreement in advance
Yeah.
that, again, this person gets me. Let's not throw shade on her, but it turns out it was not Maya Angelou who said, they may not remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Right.
She was quoting that. She's amazing, so let's give her credit still and just say it was hers. Yet it's, if you're tired of feeling stuck and wasting your time every time you put out content to the web to attract clients, and then nobody is clicking on it, nobody is watching it, nobody is buying from it, you need to blank, 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 fill
I
in the
love it.
gaps.
You're associating them into the pain.
Exactly. And it's not just twist the knife, which is the way this is usually talked about. It's bringing them specifically into their world, and it's letting them know that you understand them.
Beautiful. Thank
If you
you.
invite your audience to care before you ask them to listen, you have a formula to open up that conversation and have them mentally rehearsing the journey even before you ask them to take the next step. I'm going here to, I see she's here. Did she disappear? I am, it's called voluntolding, not volunteering. Twink, I'd love to chat with you on this one here. Lack of confidence issues in and out of the courtroom. Can you expand on this one a bit here?
Yeah, so I help attorneys with confidence issues, meaning if you can imagine an attorney standing in front of the judge with a perfectly outlined argument, having been secured beforehand, but coming up drawing a complete blank for whatever internal reason. And they don't know why, but it consistently happens, or happens consistently enough that it's deteriorating their practice and their reputation.
Yeah. Now, this is an issue that clearly they would identify with. It's where if I now talk to all of you about life insurance agents with call reluctance, there's like a whole love that you laughed at that right away. That's a whole subcategory of things that insurance people deal with, that he's the insurance rep with like State Farm, and part of his job is to go out and network and build his own warm connections. But because of his license fee to State Farm, whoever fills out the forms on the State Farm website, he gets those leads delivered to him in that specific geographic area. And cold calling sucks. I am somebody who may sometimes butt heads in this community because someone would go, that diagnosis isn't real, to which I would go, something being underdiagnosed is often a bigger issue than the overdiagnosis. I will sit here and proudly say, call reluctance is not a diagnosis. Cold calling sucks. It's got to be gamified. But in this scenario, it's so helping them with bring me into this world. What's the story that they're telling themselves? What's activating the reason that they're realizing this is a conflict?
What's activating the reason? So what's the reason?
Specific experience that happens that tells them, I got to do something about this.
Yeah, I can't stand in front of my peers or my clients one more time and fail in this way.
If you know you have everything in order to win the case, and yet the words cannot be believed based on how you're saying it. If you know you have everything in order to win this case, and yet that confidence isn't there yet, twist my phrase, if you can't yet sell it to yourself, how could you sell it to someone else?
Yeah.
If you've convinced yourself that this case is ready to be won, and yet your delivery in the courtroom
Stumbles.
stumbles, yeah, you know that better, then ... But again, it's got to start with that language in their words. If you're laying in bed with no covers on and the air conditioning is set to 68 degrees and you're still sweating. Who was talking about menopause here in the chat? Bring them into the issue. And again, it's not for the sake of just twisting the knife. It is for the sake of it's pacing and leading. You are bringing them into the scenario, and also you are anchoring them to the fact that you're the person who understands that issue.
Yeah.
Write this phrase down if you're taking notes. Everybody else is ... I'm telling you ... And here's my real intention of kicking off this way. And thank you, Krista, for prompting me for this one first. It would be that, do you notice that I didn't make this yet about number of sessions, what the specific modality was? I do hypnosis, but we do EFT first. If you're leading with that language, let me say it with love and care, that's the shit that all of us here love. Sorry, those are the high quality, proven evidence-based techniques that we all find professional appreciation. Yet like attracts like.
Yeah.
There's a student of mine who was looking to create a group for people dealing with anxiety issues, and yet all the phrasing was in her language. She is a licensed professional counselor who also does hypnosis, and goes, what do I do to keep the therapist out of my group? She'd opened up a Facebook group, and the only people joining were the people who were just like her. Why? Meaning of the communication is the response that it gets. She was talking in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. She was talking in terms of modalities, which, understand, I'm not saying are not important. I'm saying they need to become important just at the right time. Come into alignment with the story that they're telling, and right there, here's the phrase, everyone else is trying to sell them a specific modality, a number of sessions, a specific program. You're the person who understands them. And immediately you have that foot in the door in a brand new way. And notice this wasn't about whether your website is on WordPress or ClickFunnels or Kajabi. This was not about whether it was on TikTok or this. This is the stuff that's timeless. We're all watching, can't say the phrase politics aside anymore. We're all watching Elon Musk currently self-implode, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen with Twitter. And was it February or March this year that Facebook just disappeared for a day or two because of some internal issue? And then last year, there was like 2 days where Amazon Web Services, which runs the entire internet, just a big chunk of it turned off, and they had to then get it right back up and running. What I'm talking about here to kick this off is not the scenario where some of you know Richard Nongard, and he knows I tell the story. A time where, this is like 10 years ago, I bought a DVD set from him, which dates the story. How to use this specific Google Ads function to get clients. And the day it arrived, Richard's calling me. Jason, they just discontinued that feature. Sorry. I have a bunch of DVDs I need to throw out, I guess. It was $100. You can throw it away and I'll just refund you, or go to my website, find something that's like 350 and under, and I'll just give you that instead. And that's where we became friends. When we become focused on the specific mechanism, as in whether it's LinkedIn or TikTok or website or this, it all comes back to that messaging. And as soon as that is in alignment, you now have the formula for any platform, including the ones that haven't yet been invented. So take that as a bit of a task to dive into from this. What is the way you can go specific into their language? and I'll show a quick tech thing. I see that Carissa has put up a Bart Simpson hand. I'll show you a quick thing here, just so you know. This is a free resource with a time limit on it. Answerthepublic.com. There's a paid version of this. I have never paid for it. And it will let you do like 1 or 2 searches a day, and then it like cuts you off and tells you you have to buy it. You ain't heard this from me, but do 1 or 2 searches with this, then go to a different web browser, do 1 or 2 searches with that, then go to another web browser, 1 or 2 searches with that, then go to your phone, then sneak over and I grab my wife's computer. But if I just go in here and I write in, let's say, anxiety, I've already blocked for the day because I actually pulled this up earlier. Let me pull up a different browser. You can easily start to do some research. I'll see if this one works over here before I switch the screen share. Nope, it's blocking me. I think I have one more browser on this computer. No, I don't, but take my word on it. It will show a giant wheel of all these different things that people are looking for. You want to find the words your clients are using? You can go to Amazon, find books on the topic that you help, read the 3-star reviews. 3-star reviews are brutally honest. 3-star reviews are very direct. It will be specific. The 5-star reviews are almost too good to be true. The 1-star reviews is probably just someone who yells at their cat for no matter what reason. The 3-star reviews are going to tell you exactly what they were looking for, what was helpful, but what they really needed. There's also Reddit with all sorts of subreddit categories. Just be careful because Reddit is weird and there's a lot of weird stuff on there. Cough, cough, porn, cough, cough. Hey, Carissa, with the Bart Simpson hand.
Hey, so I'm about to hand you your next big idea, the power of the pivot. I just watched you do it a number of times, and I think this is something that we could all really benefit from learning a little bit more about. So like when you're talking to a colleague, you're going to be using certain phrasing that speaks to things that we ourselves have these special interests in. Mm-hmm. Whereas when you're talking to a non-colleague, a potential client, you're not necessarily going to be using those same phrasings. You also mentioned, you know, when you have your messaging, then you can go to different platforms, and different platforms require a slight pivot. So what works for you in Facebook is not going to work on TikTok. But what you did was you just solved that problem by saying, just go in and search it, search the term. You can do that in Google. You can do that in the, you know, different things that you just showed. You can also go into Instagram and write anxiety and see what pops up, what other people's stuff is. You can go into TikTok, same thing, anxiety, or helping women get unstuck in, you know, career dead ends, and see what comes up. But the power of that pivot and being able to still have your messaging, but so that it reaches the audience that you're speaking to.
Sorry, I just want to clarify something here in the chat where Twink goes, if not social media, then what? No, I wasn't saying don't do social media. I'm saying that as soon as you own your messaging and you are 100% confident that what you are saying is directly aligning with the desires of your audience, it doesn't matter if I do a lot with Facebook groups. And if suddenly, well, it's different this week. The @everyone tag is being harnessed and pulled back further than it was before because that was an experiment. Okay. Just means, what do we still have? What can we still do? And pivot from there. It doesn't mean don't do it, which is what I'm possibly mind reading into the if not social media, then what? It's instead, as soon as I know that messaging, what's the communication style on LinkedIn? I wrote something funny in a consult I was doing with someone earlier today, which was Google is the search for places to eat. YouTube is to watch people cook. TikTok is watch people cook in an entertaining way. Facebook is look at me, I'm having dinner. Instagram is look at what I'm having for dinner. And LinkedIn is I'm good at cooking dinner. And it's just a slightly different communication style. But the core thing here is, as soon as we go back to that messaging, if it's suddenly I learned something about my audience that I speak to a lot of my clients for both the training side that I do, as well as the hypnotherapy client side of things, are people who are business owners, who have a fear of putting themselves out there. They would report it as a fear of public speaking, yet the reality is they're also not confident because their messaging is completely in the garbage. And what would happen if we build up that confidence, as well as, I'll copy and paste that here. It's a little incomplete from this, but you see the idea. What would happen if we also dial in that messaging so that they are certain that what they're saying actually aligns? Because at the same time, yes, public speaking can be an emotional issue. It's also a tactical skill. And to be able to go, for one of the things I help with, your business can change people's lives. You just don't yet have the right words to inspire them to consistently take action. And that's my world. Why? Because I've listened and I've adapted from there, which this actually, excuse me, perfectly goes back to two things that were put earlier in the chat here. One was Jagir, pronouncing that right? Yeah. Should we have a niche? My watch wanted to answer the question for us. Here's the thing on niching down, which I'm going to put this into a context that everyone here would also understand. In our shared hypnotic community, there are people that we know who are known for like one specific thing, as in, that's the stop smoking in one session guy. That's the hypnodontics guy or hypnodontics woman. There's two of them. That's the person who does life between lives. That's the person who does timeline therapy. And there's stuff that we know that language. The general public is not necessarily looking for that. So be aware that I'm cautious around you ever niching down based on a modality. As in, I'm the parts therapy hypnotist, because if all you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. But here's the real point of this. All the people that you and I would know who are known for like one specific thing, if they got a call for something else, they would likely still work with that other stuff. So one of the fears of the niching strategy, and yes, it's pronounced niche, not niche, because niche rhymes with rich. One of the reasons to look at this, though, would be that the real story on this is that niching is either a startup strategy or an expansion strategy. And as soon as you better understand where the niching comes into play, it helps you to make that decision better for yourself. It's either for startup or for expansion. Because if you try to be everything to everybody, you often end up becoming nothing to nobody. And the other intention to this would be that, well, I'll get to the other intention here. So if you're brand new at this, one of the easiest questions you can ask yourself is, what is that community that I have access to that I already have some level of rapport with? What is a community that I fit into? And I'm assuming, just give us a head nod on this, because I'm guessing this is the case, that Twink, I'm having to guess that you have some background in law, and that's why this category is of interest to you.
I don't have a background per se in law, but I was raised in a family of lawyers.
Which that works too. So it's an audience that you clearly have the stories already at your fingertips as to, I understand this, I've seen what goes on with this, I know what's going on in this specific community, and you're able to speak to that.
Yes.
I had someone who signed on to work with me yesterday who is a real estate agent. And as soon as he said something, I go, do you mind if I hop in and just mind read for a moment? Because I'm married to one of you. And here's the scenario. Here's what that turns into. Here's why that's presenting as a problem. Everyone's telling you to do this, yet you want to do it that way. He goes, yeah. How'd you know that? I go, I sleep with one of you. So again, startup strategy or expansion. When I first got up and running, I have a background working in backstage theatrical management. Everything from regional theater with like Broadway caliber actors to I was in the DC area, a lot of political fundraisers, which are really entertaining when you work both sides in one weekend and just realize, oh, wow. No wonder some of these people have to have someone else drive them around. We're all in a very safe place, by the way. Government's running perfectly well in every single country. And I could speak to the needs of the performer, to the public speaker. I could speak to the needs of someone doing something artistic. And The benefit for the actor, the more likely the professional actor, the more they realize if they don't get the job, if they don't get the show, it doesn't mean the director didn't like them. It meant that the director was clearly looking for something else. It wasn't that they didn't like me, they didn't like my choices, and I'm not my choices, which is the professional mindset, which directly correlates over to sales. That it wasn't a matter of they go, I hate this person, that can be a factor too. So I looked at the crowds that I already had access to, and that's who I began with, which, side note, it's only recently that I've been realizing they tell the story. The first like 50 people I helped to quit smoking were actors, dancers, ballerinas who were smoking to stay thin. And the fact that they quit smoking and kept the weight off, I'm like, that's the story I should tell whenever someone goes, well, I want to quit smoking, but I don't want to gain any weight. It's like, hang on, I got something for you. Here's the story. So what are those crowds you already have access to? That's the easiest place to get that foot in the door. The expansion of this then becomes, though, let's go NLP language on this, chunk up. What is this community like? So everything, because it's the one that Twink shared for her crowd, either unmute yourself and just say it or drop it in the chat. What is kind of a next door neighbor of that category? Here's someone who's skilled at what they do, has clearly prepared and earned a right to be there in the room. And yet at the moment of, let's call it performance, confidence is slipping. What does that relate to? What other categories would you find people reaching out for to a hypnotist to get help on that the same components of the story, the confidence of what I do with the client, easily correlate over to another issue? I'll throw one out: test anxiety. More corporate-based job interviews where they have to jump through so many steps. The month I opened up Virginia Hypnosis was the month of the mortgage crisis. And I was next door to the testing facility where the mortgage brokers had to go get relicensed. They had to take a test to prove they were not the ones issuing the junk mortgages and ruining the economy. So again, what correlates over to that? Stage fright, performance, test anxiety. Yeah. So this is where you can go inside and ask, what is this like? And there's two ways of looking at this. One is, you could start off by being the person who is the one thing to one's very specific group of people. You can niche down. I'll go full screen for this one here. You can niche down in either one of three categories: who, what, or how. The more specific you can get, the better. Though recognize that niching down is most often, again, startup or expansion, because there are some categories. Let me simplify this for some of you. There's some categories, let me turn the watch off. There's some categories that you don't have to be the person who helps men between the age of 40 and 50 who are veterans who want to quit smoking with an energy-based healing model of hypnosis. Stop smoking hypnosis is niche down enough, it turns out. However, where I would also throw in the addition here, niching in most cases is a marketing strategy more than anything else. So let's look at Twink's example, because she's the one who is diving in here, and look at what's the core problem that she's solving. And I think someone put it here in the chat a little while ago: confidence issues, lack of self-esteem. And you already now have the messaging to, if it is something going out by way of advertising, or you're invited to be a guest on a podcast to speak to lawyers about this, when you ask yourself the question, who's going to be in front of me? That's where we niche down the messaging. So take a moment and consider, what is your model of change? What is the journey you are taking them through? And you said this here about dealing with confidence issues. Yet, let's drop you in front of these lawyers and the story is already in alignment. But couldn't you have that same talk, though, to the nurses who are fed up with where they are in their nursing system and they're looking to advance in their career, go back to school and step into some sort of more leadership role, or even become the doctor? That's another category that the same skill set can then apply to. So recognize that my model of the world now is one where I'm going to define what is the core problem that I solve? What is the core issue that's stuck? And in most cases, the people that I'm working with as my clients these days are people who it's a confidence issue related to putting themselves out there. And the one thing that's holding them back more than anything are their own emotions. So then based on that, that is the core issue. And it's from there, most of my communication I put out is towards entrepreneurs, business owners. These are the people I enjoy. I can help the person who's like trying to climb the corporate ladder. Again, my upbringing was all entrepreneurs, and there's a very uncomfortable Thanksgiving I should tell the story of when my father-in-law was on the team of people who switched air traffic control from radar to GPS. And like there were thousands of people who did that, but there's like one turning point in the story where he has his name on the patent that solved one of the biggest blocks to then get it all in motion. And goosebumps are already there for the rest of the story because it was finding out that because in his role as employee of the company, this game-changing patent was the thing that the company now owns, and he got like a $2,000 bonus at the end of the year. And what's really interesting to the story was they fought him on this. That won't work. That won't work. No, we've already tried that. That's not going to work. And he went off on his own and proved it against their opposition and then proved them wrong. And they went, okay, we're good. And there was this exchange where both sets of grandparents for our kids are still around. And it was well, that's just what you do, because if you want to be in this industry, there's only 2 companies you can work for. And maybe I shouldn't have said out loud, there could have been a third. And the room went quiet. And my father pats me on the back with the expression of, I'm proud of you, but don't be a smartass. So it's the self-made entrepreneur who can make the decision to go, hey, I want to do this project. Hey, I want to open up a Facebook group. Hey, I want to run like a monthly thing to help people out. And we can make that decision. Those are the people I love working with. It doesn't mean, though, the guy who is climbing the insurance ladder, I can help too. But let me know if that clarifies that question there, because this also goes to advertising myself and getting my name known for what I do. I want to point out my teaching style here is to go into oftentimes the questions that need to be asked rather than going, how do I advertise? Oh, you can buy Facebook ads and send people to your website. Do you see how, without addressing what we've been talking about so far, it's bringing someone to a confusing website that people don't understand exactly what it is. It's asking them to make a decision based on numbers of sessions, numbers of dollars, and they're not yet qualified to make that decision. When instead, as we dial this messaging in, a few things occur. If it's advertising, if it's paid advertising, it becomes, oh, the people who actually click from an ad are actually engaging on the website, and like Google, Facebook, all these paid platforms can actually measure from the click, how long did you stay on the website? Otherwise, you're throwing a lot of money at something because they're bouncing right off of it. So we often have people reach out to me and what I help with, and it's oh, I just need more SEO. I just need Facebook ads. And as we have this conversation, it turns into, well, if all we did was bring more sets of eyes to what you're currently doing, what would that do? And once we have this chat, it becomes oh, even more nothing. When instead, notice how this is a sanding down of the clarity of the message. And let's say suddenly Twink decides that she wants to work with school teachers who are going back to school for the more educational administration thing because they want to be vice principal or principal. You can work with that. And suddenly, expansion, you get this glorious testimonial letter from this person who she telling the story of, I was this frustrated teacher. Now I'm the vice principal of this middle school. Thank you so much. You changed my life. And then you go into your head and go, I have this asset. Here's this amazing thing someone said about my service. Who else needs to see this? And that's how we then grow the business. I'll show a quick reference of this because I was the weight loss generalist. Even though I'm no longer in Virginia, the Virginia Hypnosis website is still there because technically we're still paying taxes in Virginia. That's a whole longer story. But this brings up the story of Philip. Philip reached out because, well, I don't necessarily need to lose weight, but as a diabetic, I have a bit of a sweet tooth and that's becoming a bigger health concern. Can you help me with that? I go, oh, okay. Are there any weight loss goals attached to this? No, pretty happy with where I am. Just I figure if you could help the weight loss people curb their sugar cravings, you could probably help someone like me. He did the expansion for me. We worked together a couple of sessions. It's the last time we met. And he goes, oh, you have that camera in your classroom. Do you want me to like film a video testimonial? Oh, Philip, if you have to. And you can check out this page on your own time. I'm diabetic, and as someone who has this condition, it's a major concern to eat too much sugar. I was having a hard time balancing my numbers. And I got to tell you, after one session with Jason, the entire craving was gone. And it wasn't even my goal to lose weight, but I'm down a couple of pounds. So I'm happy about it. My wife is very happy about it. And it was surprisingly easy. If you've been thinking about reaching out to Jason about this, stop thinking about it. Just call the man. This works. A little too long of a hug was the result of that exchange, by the way. But it turned into, I now have an asset. I now have a thing. Who can I show in a geographic area around that local office who has an interest in diabetic associations, organizations, and issues that then made it so that I became the guy who was working with that for a while. I purposefully went up and down in my weight over the years as I played with like strength training and other personal goals. And I work with bodybuilders, which surprisingly is the same issue as the entrepreneurs there. I'm seeing a few things that popped up here in the chat. Yeah, that the expansion then comes in. How do you take the same core skill set that you have and then decide for yourself, here are the groups I love to work with. Now, of course, it's always up to you. If you have a specific category you don't like working with, all right. I'd always throw in my version of a scope of practice lecture, which is simple. When in doubt, don't. You don't have to be the person who can help every single person who reaches out to you. Mm-hmm. And the benefit here is that we have an amazing community. And if only there isn't someone here who I've actually referred a couple of clients to over the last year, because I'm like, hey, I know Krista now. She does this better. And I'm focused on a different category. They worked with you, right? Yay.
And I've referred people on to other people in the group as well for that very reason.
Yeah. So look at how you have that decision. I mean, I'm going to say something here I don't want you to take on as your personal story, yet I run. Part of the reason I moved was that I've done the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast now for almost 9 years. And I never intended for that educational podcast for this community. I never intended for that to become the #1 source of my clients. Yet the general public, the muggles, were finding that. And as that became the dominant source of my clients, I was sitting in a local office in Virginia working online with people around the world. And the cost of living in Orlando was a whole lot less. And Orlando is the one part of Florida that Krista will actually travel to. There's Orlando.
Only because I was calling your bluff, and you know that.
Yeah. All the stereotypes of Florida man, that's around this area. Yet it was we can do this anywhere. Discovery. And that was part of that move. So my client business is now technically inside of Work Smart Hypnosis, the educational company. And meanwhile, here's the other company, Attract Pre-Sold Clients, which is more about the messaging, the communication, the client journey. How do we craft that persuasive message where the client is selling themselves into the journey? That's expansion for me, because we have real estate agents in there. We have financial advisors in there. We have a lot of my hypno crowd too. I point this out though, because I was able to make the decision that I used to love working with medical hypnosis issues. Yet because of the staff that I have on my coaching team and the various events and my clients, I don't have the bandwidth to do the appropriate communication with like a doctor if it's their patient coming to see me for a medical issue. You know, we're, in my opinion, it should still be you have this really big diagnosis, you're on all these medications, we're going to send something over so your doctor can, basically acknowledge that they know you're doing this. I'm not using the R word because referral equals liability in some circles. I am seeking the acknowledgement that you see no contraindication to the use of hypnotic suggestion. It's a lawyer one time looked at that phrasing of mine and he goes, that's the equivalent of like a thumbs up from across the room. The acknowledgement that you see no contraindication to the use of hypnotic suggestion. And like we would send that over, doctor would sign off. We'd let the client, they'd sign a release. Client signs a release. We'd send the thing to the doctor. They'd sign off. I'd get it back. Then we'd schedule. And it's not for any lack of confidence or passion. We just don't have the bandwidth to do that. To which I now go, hey, you know what? If I had that issue, I'd be calling this person. And if I'm thinking that, it tells me I should give you their number. Would you like it? And again, at any point in the journey, we can change our minds. I was working high schools doing assemblies as a stage hypnotist originally. So originally, Virginia Hypnosis was going to be working mostly with kids and teens. Now that I have my own children, I don't want to see yours. And all of you have the right to make those decisions. Nicholas, who is an opera singer, one of my students who does hypnosis, said it with the loving teddy bear arrogance that he can have sometimes, as in, I am absolutely certain I can sit down with someone for an hour and a half and they will never smoke cigarettes again. However, as an opera singer, I don't want to risk sitting in a room with someone who stinks that way and it affecting my throat. So he's had to clarify. People go, oh, you're not confident. Works like, no, I might have to perform that night and that then affects me that day. Like opera is really about training your body to become this megaphone. True opera, even in major opera houses, there's no microphones, there's no amplification. There's a longer story about pulling him one time into a show one time. So notice as I'm looking here, yeah, I wanted to address this more from the messaging mindset. I can go for another 15 or so minutes here. By the way, I would give a quick plug for something very straightforward though, which is Chrissa runs a really awesome group. There's a lot of people who run communities. There's a lot of people who reach out and say, hey, could you come do something? And because I have my own groups, I have my own communities, timing is often an issue. And sometimes it's can you do something like at 10 o'clock at night? I'm like, no, I'm asleep by then. Chrissa, I say yes to, and she's run an awesome community. You put something together for people to kind of chip in and help out with the community you run. Do you want to talk about that for a moment? Oh, you just dropped it in
there. I just dropped it in there. So basically, this is an opportunity for you guys to say, hey, thanks. I enjoy this. I find it informational. I find it informative. I find it amusing, entertaining, whatever you want to call it. And I'm appropriating Lori Hammond's verbiage when she says notes of appreciation instead of like $2. But really, it's $2, less than the cost of a cup of coffee at Starbucks, like maybe a quarter cup of coffee at Starbucks these days, right?
They'll let you look at the coffee for $2.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But basically, it just helps with the back end of being able to continue to afford the fancy Zoom stuff that I need and putting together all of the organizational parts and reaching out to the fabulous spotlight hosts like Mr. Linett here. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your expertise with us, sir. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, so click that link, throw some, is that link going to let people leave more than $2? Oh yeah, I see what it is. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I mentioned something too, which I'll talk about this and I'll also teach through the filter of it. One of the biggest issues you'll run into in your marketing, and again, notice how this wasn't just, oh, you need to be on TikTok. Oh, you need to be on this platform. It comes back to what's the core of that message and how when you know the ins and outs as to what you do, why you do it, and what to say and how to say it, that's what simplifies so much of this messaging. It's how behind the scenes, there's someone who's just kind of cleaning up a writing project for me. And I'm able to express some like really specific things as to, we don't talk about it this way, we talk about it that way. As in, one of the biggest problems that most of your businesses are facing. And I'll drop a little acronym in here as to how I talk about it. 3XC. I just typed it wrong. 3XC, which really stands for CCC, because in high-level consulting, which congratulations, all of you are, conversations are the currency of consulting. The number one problem in your business more than anything else right now is that you are not generating enough conversations. From the person who, without ego behind this, has a 2 Comma Club award for running more than $1 million of sales through a single website, and does a lot of stuff online. The number one issue in your businesses is that you're not generating enough conversations. As in, the thing that built my business more than anything else was going out and doing in-person networking. I had more time than I had money in the early stages, and anywhere I could find where people gathered, I would go there. And the intention was, let me talk about what I do with passion, and by accident, that's going to bring me clients. The biggest benefit of the networking, though, was it forced me to have multiple conversations a day and figure out exactly how to talk about what I do in a way that didn't end up with the confused look on their face. You know that feeling when you've been explaining hypnosis to somebody and like they're the puppy dog head confused to the side, and you're just confusing them even further. And some of you know at that point, you can just yell sleep and they like hit the ground. That's not the induction that you want. Instead, communicating the value of what I did in a way where they understood exactly what it was, how it worked, why it worked. I'm going to go off on a quick soapbox here. I won't even let my clients say I believe in hypnosis. There's enough research that backs up the proof behind what we do. Advances in neuroscience that have validated the state, tens of thousands of peer-reviewed studies that are published online. This ain't Santa Claus. So we have an evidence of proof underneath it. And I was coming at it from this just real world approach of things. And I would keep track in my head. If I said it this way, they were confused. If I said it that way, they were nodding in agreement, asking me what the next step was. So in many cases, you need to clarify what that next step is. I'll flag it in Chris's group. She had posted something wonderful a while ago as to a strategy of mine that brought in, you credited that in some way to then moving to that 6-figure level. I'm going to show you something that, yes, on one side of things, this is an invite. On the other side of things, let's teach through it. I just dropped a link there in the chat, which is this page. It's attractpresoldclients.com/get started. And I'll talk you through this when at the same time, this is an invite to connect with someone on my team, and you'll see exactly what this is. This is where to get started. If you want to attract pre-sold clients to your business, watch the video below. Here's the big message I'm going to be speaking through as I explain this here. And I'll write in the chat this very specific phrase: specific, deliverable outcome. Before I detail this, Krista, have you had Ken Guzzo do one of these?
Not in here. There was
On here.
one in MMHA now.
Okay. Only reason I'm going to talk about him. His program's really good.
Mhm.
And it is one of the very few training offers in the hypnotic industry that actually offers a specific deliverable outcome.
And a money back guarantee.
Well, not even that. I'm talking about it in terms of the messaging to the students.
Okay.
Help your clients stop smoking in one session, earn back your entire investment in the first 4 or 5 clients. And as much as I just said something extremely nice about Ken, let me now say the opposite. And he knows I talk about this. The next year at HypnoThoughts, he did a workshop called Hypnotic Awesomeness. And I think there were 4 people in the room, and I think one of them paid. What was missing? Specific, deliverable outcome. Your clients don't want a free consultation. They don't want a strategy session. They don't want to sign up for your newsletter. They don't want your free download. They don't want your ebook. They don't want a lot of the stuff you put out. They want what they need. Now, that's not to say, just to clarify, from the guy who's plugged the word strategy session on hundreds of websites and teaches it, it's you've got to put the language again back to where we started the day, inside of what they need. that if you're ready to throw out those cigarettes once and for all, click here to schedule your strategy session. Now we have a specific deliverable outcome. Now we have something that already has them telling themselves the story. They don't want a consult. They want the outcome. If you're ready to lose the weight when nothing else has worked, click here to schedule your weight loss consultation. It's pacing and leading. We've got to put it into a context where now we are hitting a very specific deliverable outcome. So back to this page, see this as a model, but also an invite. If you want to attract pre-sold clients to your business, watch the video below. Click the purple button below. It's all the same shade. Click the purple button below to claim your, this was supposed to be updated. It's supposed to say claim your client attraction audit, which is what it's actually called now, but this says the older language. I get to send a message today. Grab a time now while we're still willing to give it away for free. We will help you diagnose exactly why your business isn't yet growing or scaling the way you want. We will offer specific suggestions on specifically what needs to happen now to consistently attract pre-sold clients. So you see how I'm phrasing this in a way that's not, hey, if you want to see you're a fit for our program, click here. Hey, if you want to apply, click here, which yes, that can work. Yet I'm putting all the language specifically towards needs and desires of the audience. If you have a stack of weight loss books that you've already read and none of the strategies have worked, again, it's not about twisting the knife. It's about coming into alignment with the story that they're telling themselves. If that, which by the way, not to nerd out on tech for a moment, Facebook can be extremely picky on paid traffic. If categories like weight loss, you can't show before and after images, but I refer to a belief shifting strategy as elevation. If you're ready to donate to charity the clothing that you never want to have to wear again. Oh, I love the faces I saw when I said that one. Which to the weight loss client, that's a weight loss offer, but it's not hitting that, bold claim and compliance language that Facebook goes, no, you can't say that, not in an ad. You can post whatever, almost. So again, look at this as an example. And again, discover the 3 steps to attract pre-sold clients. And I'm going to walk you through exactly what's on this page, which is this headline, discover the 3 steps to attract pre-sold clients. In this video, I walk you through exactly what the 3 steps are to attract pre-sold clients. There's a doctor who wrote a book. He's I believe, psychiatrist. And it was all about understanding human behavior and how do we motivate actions. And this doctor was interesting because he was actually working with kind of high-risk cases. One of his patients was extremely obsessive compulsive. And just by simply even just reading this book that this physician put out, it changed so much of his world. If you're curious to find the book, it was Dr. Leo Marvin. And yes, Dr. Leo Marvin is the Richard Dreyfuss character in the movie What About Bob, starring Bill Murray. Come on, show me the image. There we go. Who is ready to go to Amazon and buy a book? Baby steps onto the boat, baby steps to the front of the boat, baby steps and so forth here. So as I go back to this page, the baby step here is, this is where to get started, because one of our most common questions is, hey, this makes sense. How do I get started? Well, this is where to get started. The URL, get started. If you want this outcome, do this thing. Here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to help. Discover the 3 steps to attract pre-sold clients. Just to talk through some psychology here. And again, headline, white, ugly background, video and button. This page goes into a little bit more detail here. But with this one, the headline sells one thing. To learn the 3 steps, watch the video. The video sells one thing. As great as these 3 steps are, they work even better when they're specifically customized to you, which is why there's a button below to grab a time on our calendar and talk to someone on our team to see how we can help out. If we can help, we'll let you know. If we don't think we can help you, we're not going to try to sell you anything. Oh, actually says that right there. If we know we can help you, we'll tell you. If we don't think we can help, we won't try to sell you anything, which only because Sharon is nodding in a very knowing way. This is a intentional loop, because if we know we can help you, we'll tell you. If we don't think we can help, we won't try to sell you anything. What does that activate the story of in the mind will happen if we know we can help you? We will offer something very specific that we know we can help. So I see some people sometimes often like apologizing for their offers. Hey, I'm sorry to be here and promote, and I do this one-to-one, but I'm just here today to give this free talk for 20 minutes to the Rotary Club. No. Hey, here today to share 3 strategies you can use for more confident public speaking. I was invited here by Dr. Johnson, this well-established physician who mostly works with lawyers, and I'm trying to combine everyone's stories. He's an expert on menopause. But look at the page in terms of the structure. And yes, we throw a big, sexy guarantee on what we do, which if you're curious to have a chat, basically, I'm not asking anyone to sign up or pay for anything. It's just a, hey, I'm curious, maybe. I dropped that link, though, in the chat. I've got Kaylin and Scotty who work with me as well, who my whole thing is that I only ever hire people on my team who can do what I do just as good as I do, if not better. I like putting myself in the room where I'm like, wow, they're better at this. That's why let me have them working with me on this. So there's an invite if you'd love to have one of those chats. It's attractpresoldclients.com/get-started. When this replays to the group, I'll drop that link there too. But look at that for 2 angles. The same formula applies to what I would do with my clients. If you're ready to throw out those cigarettes and take back control, just rephrase it as we go. If you're ready to throw out those cigarettes and take back control of your life, click the blue button. Uh-oh, is Jason sick and dying? He said blue button. No, Virginia Hypnosis was always blue. Click the blue button below to request your hypnotic strategy session. We'll talk about your goals and set the exact plan necessary to throw out that habit once and for all. Talk soon. But again, I'm not just saying, call here. I'm not just saying, get your free consult. I'm phrasing it in a way where there is a specific measurable outcome.
And anybody who's been in here for any length of time knows that I don't tend to like plug the, programs that our Spotlight guest hosts are offering, but I make an exception for Jason, because if it weren't for, initially it was the velvet rope strategy that got me hooked on you, but it did cause me to scale up my business in almost no time. I think because
again, when you become the niche, it doesn't turn into, if you're playing the game of, oh, there's someone else in my area who does this and they charge this much. Oh, here's this other person in my area and they have a doctorate. You're chasing the wrong parameters.
Yeah.
Let's wrap this up with the best quote from Steve Martin: just become so good they can't ignore you.
Perfect. Yes. And I love going back to that little story that you told at the beginning of this section, how you very gently held a humorous mirror up to the people who do respond that way. Oh, must be your training is terrible. Oh, you just don't know what you're talking about. The research says this, not that, And you are like,
well,
hello.
And I've got to run here in a minute, but it's a time that I was on a podcast. This is not about Jerry Kine, but Jerry Kine was the hypnosis instructor who would tell his students, you don't say that they're under hypnosis. Under is a pejorative word. It's a controlling word. You say they're experiencing hypnosis. They're going through hypnosis. They're in hypnosis. Avoid the term under. And I love Jerry, and we miss him. He passed away a few years ago. There are some of his students, though, who took that message and that's their megaphone. And I was a guest on a podcast at a different industry, and we wrap up the recording and he goes, hey, I need to apologize. At one point I said under hypnosis and I should have not used that phrase. I'm like, wait, what? He goes, oh, well, I recorded an episode with another hypnotist at one point, but the conversation derailed because I said under hypnosis and exact quote, this dude fucking attacked me for using that phrase. And I'm like, okay, well, I can tell you where he learned that from. I can give you the polite disclaimer that the man who taught that didn't tell his students to have that kind of fiery passion underneath it. Here's my take on it though. If I say under hypnosis, are you comfortable with that? He goes, yeah, I don't have any of those expectations or judgments from that. I go, good. So like if you were my client in session 1, you're seeing me for weight loss. In session 2, you come back in, I go, give me a report. How's it been going? Oh, wow. Ever since I was under hypnosis last week, I've had no cravings. I've not been snacking in the evening. I'm shocked how easy this has been. And I'd go, fantastic. So today, while you're under hypnosis, match up to where your audience is.
Yep.
That being
And
said,
don't argue with your clients by telling them that they are wrong.
and if you
and
argue with them, they're
whatever.
just going to fall asleep and be stuck in hypnosis forever. And we know that. And we need less of that happening. Otherwise, it's just the next
The
phase.
whole world's going to fall asleep here pretty soon.
Pretty much.
Because of
I
your
mean,
persuasive language and us going out there and having bigger and better business.
yeah, I've got to run to get ready for a workshop.
Thank you
I'm
so much,
participating in, like,
Jason.
25 minutes. Oh, yeah, I'll drop this link in here too.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm doing a workshop in 35 minutes. This is inside of a Facebook group, so you might have to join it.
Well, thanks for the extra time too.
On, what did we call it? Stop being invisible to your best clients. It's going to be like
nice.
a 30-minute or so workshop working through some very specific things. If you want to join that, there's a direct link.
Perfect.
May make you answer a few questions to join that community. But yeah, looking forward to continuing this conversation. Krista, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so
Familiar
much.
faces, and
I'll see you soon.
become my best friend on Facebook. I'm easy to find.
Yes, you are. All right.
All right. Thanks again.
Bye.